In this presentation, we're going to give an overview of the practical project for the Level 3 in brickwork. So let's have a look at what the practical project is all about. Well, this is where you demonstrate your skills in planning, building and evaluating the work that you do on site. So the idea is that the project is designed to showcase all the skills that you've learned in college and on site during your apprenticeship. It's going to prove that you're competent as a bricklayer. So how much does this count towards your final qualification? So the project can be divided into 3 parts. We've got the planning, the practical and the evaluation. So the planning counts 17% towards your overall qualification, and it's where you describe how you're going to go about doing the project. The practical counts for 29% of the overall marks, and this is where the assessor will come out and look at the skills that you're performing on site. And finally, the evaluation is worth 14% of your overall marks, and this is where you look back on how it went. What were the strengths? What were the weaknesses? Did you meet your success criteria? So overall, there are 74 hours allowed to complete the project. This is broken down into 12 hours for the planning, 50 hours for the work that you complete on site, and 12 hours for the evaluation where you look at how well it went. So let's have a look at the planning for the project. And this is completed before anything starts on site. Now, your project might be split into smaller jobs. You can have a maximum of 4 smaller jobs, and each one of those should have a plan. Now, the largest job that you do on site, the plan for that will count for the marks, but every other plan must still pass. And what we've done is we've made some forms which we can access in Google Classroom to help you with your planning. And this will include things like a resource list, a risk assessment, a method statement, success criteria, and communication methods and styles. So you'll be able to access these in Google Classroom and complete these before the work starts on site. So what skills do you need to demonstrate for your practical project? Now here you have a bit of choice because not everyone works for the same sort of company. So some people might work for small builders and some people work on the larger sites. So you have to choose 4 out of the 6 options shown below. And what we'll do is we'll go into each of these in more depth, but these include setting out, masonry structures, masonry cladding, detailed and complex masonry, repair and maintenance work, and concreting. So you have to choose 4 out of the 6 of those units. So potentially if you were working for a small builder, you'd do a lot of repair and maintenance, so you'd choose that unit. But if you were working on a large building site for a Taylor Wimpey or a Redrow Homes, that wouldn't be appropriate, but you might get masonry cladding, which is bricking up around a timber frame house. So let's have a look at the first optional unit, and this is setting out buildings. So in each option, you then have a choice of 2 or 3 potentially different jobs to do. So in setting out, you can choose 2 or more of the following: setting out straight lines, right angles, and openings. So how could you demonstrate this on site? So we've got a few examples. You could set out an extension or a house using traditional methods, profile boards and lines. You could position a door or a window using a set of house plans. You could set out internal block walls. You could position a lintel at the correct height. You could make sure your brick and your block work is built to the correct gauge. If we click over, masonry structures. So you have to choose at least 3 of the following: cavity walling, solid walling, forming and bridging openings, joint finishes, sills, cappings and copings. So examples of this could include building a garden wall with a brick on edge to finish and jointing it up. That's 3 things there, so that would complete it. Building a cavity wall in brick and block with a window opening, a lintel and then jointing up. And as I've just said, these can be combined in one bigger job. For example, setting out the cavity wall, positioning the window and then laying the bricks and blocks. So our next unit option is masonry cladding. And masonry cladding is where the roof of the building isn't supported on your brickwork or blockwork. So it could be a pre-erected timber frame house, it could be a concrete framed building, or it could be pre-erected steel, such as a commercial building. It might be a warehouse, it could be a supermarket, it could be an office block. So examples include laying bricks or blocks on the outside skin of a timber framed house, blockwork between steels on a commercial building, or potentially brick cladding on a concrete framed building. Our next option is complex and detailed masonry structures. So this is mainly level 3 work, and you can choose 2 of the following: arches, whether they're rough ringed, axed or gauged, chimney stacks, fireplaces, walls with flush, projecting or decorative features, obtuse angles, acute angles, curved work on plan, reinforced brickwork and curved work in elevation. So looking at some examples, you could perhaps do an arch over a door or a window, a garden wall with an oversailing course and a brick on edge, a bay window using squint bricks, putting in bed reinforcement, whether it's the welded ladder type or the coiled mesh, building a curved garden wall or a planter, or potentially building in a decorative course in a different colour or a pattern. Our next unit is repairing and maintaining masonry structures. So if you're a small builder, this is the type of unit that you want to go for. And you've got to choose at least 2 of the following. So matching existing materials, continuing existing bonds, matching the existing quality of the structure, forming new or repairing openings, underpinning existing walls, installing temporary supports, wall tie replacement, cleaning and clearing existing cavities. So examples could include building an extension to a property which matches the brick colour, it will match the bond, and it should match the existing quality as well. We could include making a new opening in an existing wall, so propping up the wall using acros and strongboys, cutting through, putting in a steel, brick or block up an existing door or a window, clean out cavities from coring holes on a new build potentially, and finally we could have repairing a brickwork, so repairing a garden wall which matches the brick type and colour. But we've got a lot of different ways that we can get this one. The final unit we have is placing and compacting concrete. So you've got to choose at least 2 methods of doing this: chute, elephant's trunk, via the skip or a pump, a monorail, and manually. So what do we mean by this? Well, we could pour concrete into a foundation for a garden wall or extension, and this could be done via the chute on the mixer. It could be pumped in, it could be done manually with a barrow. We could pour concrete into a floor slab and finish it to the specification. We could concrete a garden path using a brushed finish, or we could concrete a step and finish using an edging trowel. So basically anything to do with concreting on site. Now we've got our 4 out of 6 options. Unfortunately, we've still got more skills to showcase, so what else have we got to do? Well, these are the sorts of things that you do every day anyway. So while the assessor is observing you potentially concreting or laying bricks on site, they'll be looking at the other things as well, including health and safety. So are you wearing the correct PPE? Are you following the site rules? Are you moving and handling materials safely? They'll also look at the security and emergency procedures. So are you looking after the tools, the materials, potentially the site? Do you know how to deal with accidents, fires and spillages? Then they'll look at your working practices. So are you reading the plans? Are you following the correct methods? And are you signing in and doing things like delivery tickets? And finally, they'll be looking at your communication skills. So, are you working well with others? Are you communicating clearly with the client and the customer? And are you applying the principles of equality and diversity? In other words, are you treating everyone fairly on site? So, you finished the project. How well did it go? So once the project's been completed, the next stage is you have to evaluate it. And the evaluation is based on the largest job you complete on site. So we've also got a pre-prepared form, and what you're going to do is answer some of the questions that potentially you set in the planning. Did you meet the success criteria that you said you wanted to do at the start of the job? How well did you communicate through your project? What would you do differently? What did you learn from the project? What were your strengths? And where could you improve? How would you do it better next time? So that's the evaluation report, which is done at the end once the project's been completed. And finally, how is the overall project marked? So, going right back to the start, the planning, well, this has to be completed 2 weeks before any work starts on site. And there are 12 out of 42 marks available for this. Now, only the plan for the largest job will count towards the final grade, but don't forget, every plan must at least pass. The practical, well, this is marked by the college assessor coming out on site and observing you completing the tasks that you've planned. Now, the assessor must come out a minimum of 3 times to observe and record your work, and they're going to take photographs, video evidence, potentially talk to the employer, and they're going to observe each stage of that project. And then they will mark that against occupational standards. And the marks available for that are 20 out of 42. And then finally, the evaluation. So once the project's completed, you'll fill in your evaluation report, and then this will be marked by the assessor, and you must gain a pass on each of the criteria. If you fail on an individual part, you'll get additional training, and you only need to resubmit the failed section. And the marks available for this are 10 out of 42. So those add up, and you're looking at getting either a pass, a merit, or a distinction. Now, the people involved in all of this, the assessor, they're the ones who'll mark all your paperwork and come out on site, and they work for the college. The IQA is the internal quality assurance, and they're employed by the college to check that the assessor is working to the correct standards and to check his work. And finally, the external quality assurance is from City and Guilds, and they go to each college to make sure that we're all standardised, that a bricklayer in one college in Wales is getting the same treatment as another